Cut. This is The Cut. The Cut Podcast with Pete Ferguson. Film, music, games, entertainment. This is The Cut from Telegraph Talk.
Hello, this is The Cut from Telegraph Talk. We are your weekly guide to all things music, games, gadgets, film, and so much more. This week we're in San Francisco for the launch of the brand new gizmo from Steve Jobs and the team at Apple. But is this latest bit of iPad tech worth all the fuss? Claudine Beaumont will tell us all later. Also, in this week's edition of The Cut, Telegraph film critic Tim Robey takes the hard work out of picking a good movie and picks one for you. And Nick and Tom are back in the studio to spill the beans on some new games that are due for release. First though, a big warm welcome to Bernadette McNulty from the Telegraph's team of music critics, and she's here to chew over this week's brand new music.
The Cut from telegraph.co.uk. Music.
Go put your records on. Tell me your favorite song.
Let's talk about Corinne Bailey Rae first.
Yes.
The new album's called The Sea.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, of course, her husband died a couple of years ago. Is that reflected in the album?
It is and it isn't. I mean, this is the big dramatic twist in her story, because when she came out in 2006, Put Your Records On, I mean, that was everywhere, wasn't
song.
it? Yeah. Really happy and uplifting, and she's got that very sweet, high-pitched voice. So when this story broke about her husband, it really cast everything in a different light. You can't help but listen to that album, and you're just like, what's she going to tell me? But I think that's because she's been so private about it again. So somebody less private, you might read less into those songs. The first single off it does give you that feed. It's called Are You Here? And it's almost like it's a completely different style for her. It's just at first it's just her and an electric guitar strumming, and that those kind of soulful bluesy influences seem to have gone, and her voice is quite cracked, but it's really good, and it's clearly about her husband. It's almost like you want to hear it on vinyl. Like, it has a complete vinyl feel to it, and it's really good, but definitely less poppy, I think, than her first album was. It doesn't sound like she knows quite where she wants to fit in yet, and it also sounded slightly more of an American album to me. And it's interesting because she did really well in the States. I mean, I didn't know this. She sold 1.9 million copies of her record. Mm-hmm. That kind of soul, that warm soul sound, sometimes British people are a little bit too, it's a bit rich for me, they like things a bit starker or a bit poppier. So I wonder if it might do better in the States than here.
Okay, let's have a listen to that brand new album called The Sea. This is a track entitled I'll Do It All Again. So there we go, lovely little song there from Corinne Bailey Rae's new album, The Sea, which Bernadette highly recommends. Next though, Midlake. I must admit, I don't know a huge amount about this band. Should I be paying attention to them?
Yes. Actually, there's some parallels with Corinne Bailey Rae. 2006 they released their second album. They're these kind of beardy Texan music students, so they're quite muso-ish.
Like ZZ Top?
Like ZZ Top, but without the denim or the ladies, basically. If ZZ Top had really nerdy little brothers, they would be Midlake. And they put out this second album in 2006, which was called The Trials of Van Occupantha, which sounds weird, but it was just this brilliant album. It was like some 70s Laurel Canyon kind of, it had bits of the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac. They've taken a little bit of time to come back, so this is their third album, The Courage of Others. And so I was really excited about it because I loved that last album. And I have to say, I've listened to this 3 times now, and I don't actually know quite what to make of it. And if the Fleetwood Mac's gone, it's still quite Neil Young or Crosby, Stills and Nash. There's still that 70s Americana in there a little bit. The other thing, maybe how you might feel about this record, is whether you like Radiohead, because Midlake are often compared to Radiohead, and I think it's because they're both quite serious but very musically adventurous bands. So I maybe found it a little bit too downbeat, but I know that a lot of people like that. And I think musically, obviously, they're very clever, and it's an album that you would listen to a few times. But maybe it's a bit like The Road, the film. It's a bit like, well, you can appreciate that it's quite good, but it might just be a bit dark for this time of year.
Although 2 good albums perhaps for a Sunday.
I think I maybe suggest that you put Corin on after Midlake, or else you just won't be going into work on Monday. Yeah, that's
right.
Telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
And that was Bernadette McNulty. You can see music reviews from her and the rest of the Telegraph team at telegraph.co.uk/The Cut. And Midlake are going to be on tour over the next few weeks. If you want to see them live, you can buy tickets online at telegraph.co.uk/The Cut and just follow the link. Time now, though, to grab some popcorn.
Film.
Okay, Tim, let's talk about this week's films then. First up, Precious.
This has been doing the round since Cannes when it premiered, and it's now really one of the big awards players this season.
It's won a Golden Globe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been doing really well. Monique won the Best Supporting Actress award. She'll almost certainly win the Oscar. She plays the mother of the main character, Precious, and it's set in Harlem in the late 80s, and it's an extremely grueling tale of abuse.
Very gritty, isn't it?
It's extremely gritty, and it's really quite impressive in a lot of ways. The guy who directed it, Lee Daniels, is best known as a producer. He produced Monsters Ball and The Woodsman, and he sort of tackles these very kind of hard-hitting, kind of controversial movies. As a director, he's kind of all over the place in a way, and the film is, like, in technical ways, quite messy. There's all sorts of crazy fantasy sequences and kind of strange close-ups of fried eggs, and you're sort of thinking, what is all this about? But the thing about it is that he got these fantastic performances out of literally everyone down the cast list, right down to Mariah Carey, who's kind of miraculously good in her 3 scenes as a social worker.
So her last film was Glitter, and that almost destroyed her.
Well, that was her
acting
kind of
career.
first and virtually last role. Yeah, she's turned up in a couple of things. The lead actress, Gabourey Sidibe, is certainly going to get nominated for an Oscar, because she's just tremendous. She's this huge presence, and as the performance goes on, the empathy for this character just becomes overwhelming. It's like what she's going through is so extraordinarily horrible. It piles on the misery in a way that some people will find over the top, and I find kind of amazingly cathartic, actually, because of the acting.
What is Oprah Winfrey's involvement in the film?
Oprah Winfrey got on board, I think, after it was shown in Cannes as an executive producer, so she's helping to promote it.
Okay, so what's your score?
I'm going to give it 4. As I say, it's really not a perfect film at all, but I think in many ways it's kind of a great one.
That's Precious, rated 15. Completely the other end of the spectrum, Disney's Princess and the Frog. They're back to animation.
This is really back to basics for Disney, because it's 2D animation. It's very old school. Traditional cell animation is what they would call it. It's a nice story. It's set in early 20th century New Orleans, and it's about this young, fairly impoverished black maid who has been working for this rich family, and kind of a prince comes to town. There's these fairy tale elements.
Like Cinderella.
It's basically Cinderella again, and there's a frog that turns up, and kissing the frog doesn't turn him into a prince, it turns her into a frog as well. There are good musical numbers. There's a really cool montage of her kind of idea of what this restaurant's going to be like, which is kind of like full Art Deco style. And we have a kind of an alligator that plays the trumpet, and then we get a firefly that's singing, and it's piling on the kind of quirky animal sidekicks in a way that is a bit predictable. It's kind of a good film for families. It's done quite well in America. It might even have a shot at a nomination for Best Animated Feature, but I doubt it will win.
Okay, and what about your score then, Tim?
I'll give it 3, because I think it's not bad. There's a lot of charm. As I say, it has its longers.
Okay, Princess and the Frog, 3 out of 5. That's Tim's rating, and it's rated U, available nationwide. What about Edge of Darkness? That's rated 15.
This is a remake of a 1980s British TV series from the same director, Martin Campbell, and it's about this guy whose daughter is murdered, and he goes on this kind of quest to discover who's responsible.
And this sort of film has been done a million times before.
It's not so much that it feels dated, because they've tried their best to update the plot and make the kind of nuclear stuff a bit more current. The problem with it is that you feel as though they're trying to cram in as many of the elements from the miniseries as they can into a 2-hour film. It feels like whole scenes are missing, and it feels very truncated, and as if they've kind of mucked around with it a fair bit in the editing room as well. And they've decided in the end to go for this kind of like full, all guns blazing, kind of like Mel vengeance movie, which I think is probably twisting the material too far into like pulp territory, really, rather than making it quite political and interesting, which it could have been.
Close but no cigar by the sounds of it.
Well, I'm going to have to give it a 2-star rating, I think, because it is a failure as a story.
All right, okay, that means your pick of the week this week is Precious.
Precious, for sure, yeah.
Okay, let's have a little listen to a clip from that film, and Tim, catch you next week.
Cheers.
My name is Clarice Precious Jones. I want to be on the cover of a magazine. I wish I had a light-skinned boyfriend with real nice hair. But first I want to be in one of them BET videos.
So that's Tim's pick of the week, Precious. You can keep up to date with the latest reviews online at telegraph.co.uk/The Cut. And you can also follow the podcast team throughout the week on Facebook and twitter.com/The Cut Podcast. Still to come, Claudine Beaumont inspects Apple's latest gadget.
This is The Cut. Games.
Let's talk games again with Nick and Tom. Hello again, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
BioShock, Nick, you've described it as easily one of the best games of the last 10 years.
Well, BioShock, the first one, easily was, yeah. BioShock 2, first of all, it's a better shooter than the first one, just in terms of gameplay mechanics. I mean, you can use your plasmids and your weapons at the same time, different combinations of what you can do with these things. For example, in the first game, when you had a plasmid, which is basically the lightning bolt or the fire you can shoot out of your left hand. In this one, you can upgrade your plasmids to the point where they become sort of different weapons in themselves. For example, you can freeze someone, which basically stops them dead in their tracks, pick them up with telekinesis and hurl them down the corridor at oncoming enemies. Even if you miss, they shatter and turn into huge shards which lacerate everybody. I mean, it's amazing. The other thing also I love about BioShock 2 is this one you can actually influence the events of the story as it's happening. You can make choices within the game that have an immediate effect on your surroundings. For example, you can meet citizens in Rapture who are, lined up with the bad guys. If you choose to spare them, they start to question the motives of their higher-ups and start to help you out.
So is that the computer actually learning as it's going along?
I think it might be a pre-programmed sort of set of options.
Very cool.
But it certainly provides a deeper game experience than the first one.
Quickly moving on, Mag and, was it Dantes Inferno?
Mag? Well, it basically puts a war in your living room, doesn't it?
Well, it's
256 players can play at the same time.
In one war.
Eat your heart out, modern warfare too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a multiplayer on this scale before, has
That's
there?
ginormous, isn't it?
It's huge.
Certainly not for consoles.
All right, that's one to keep an eye out for then. And what about Dantes Inferno?
Dantes Inferno is a third-person hack-and-slash game which is apparently based on the classic work of literature, Dantes Inferno. Well, I've played it very briefly, and it handles very well. I seriously doubt that Dante was as muscular as they're portraying him in this game. I mean, he's got the physique of an NFL linebacker. I didn't get too far into it because, unfortunately for Dante's Inferno, it was at the same demo as Mass Effect 2, so I gave it about 20 minutes and went, right off to Mass Effect 2, here we go. It's entertaining.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's kind of fine. I mean, the art's quite interesting, shall we say.
And the enemies you fight are quite interesting. I mean, if you're the right age to play it could provide a solid afternoon's entertainment, much in the same way that Darksiders, while it didn't do anything particularly new, as a package was very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I played the whole of Darksiders.
Yeah.
And I kind of preferred that.
Cool, okay, well, it certainly sounds very interesting. Not particularly family-friendly necessarily.
Oh, no.
Wade through
this isn't
bodies.
family entertainment by any stretch
there's lots
of the
of
imagination.
It's not on the Wii, is it? It's definitely not on the Wii.
No, not on the Wii.
All right, cool. Okay, so are these just preview copies that you've seen?
Yes.
Okay, so no scores this week until you've managed to get your hands on them properly?
Although I would qualify that while I haven't played Dante's Inferno too much, I was allowed about 5-6 hours with BioShock 2, so I can speak very highly of that.
Okay.
It's really, really good.
Nice one. I think if you've got a spare copy of that going around, I think I might have to borrow it myself.
I think you're on a waiting list.
Really? Yeah, probably at the bottom of the list. And you can keep up to date all the latest game reviews. Telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
The Cut. Thursdays from The Telegraph.
So this is the Cut podcast from San Francisco for that big launch of the brand new Apple iPad. Joining us on the line now and still at the launch is Claudine. Claudine, there's been weeks of speculation about this iPad. We were thinking it's going to be called the iSlate or the iTablet. What exactly does it do?
Well, I think the best way to think of it really is to imagine a big iPhone. It looks almost exactly the same as an iPhone right down to that home button on the screen, but it has got a 9.7-inch colour touchscreen display on it, and it's basically used for all the things that you'd use the iPhone more and a little bit more besides. So lots of games, lots of apps, and of course some productivity stuff that you might do for your work using the new tools that they've released for that.
And is it basically designed to be a media hub, something that holds your movies and games and so on, and sit in the corner of your room?
Yeah, I think that was very much the emphasis that they were placing. There were a lot of demos of games that they were doing, a lot of discussion about how lots of the apps that have already been released would work well on the device. But there was definitely an element of them trying to push the usability angle as well by, as I said, releasing this kind of touch-enabled version of iWork that you can use actually on the tablet and manipulate page layouts and things like that. There is a very clear emphasis on that also being something that could be useful.
Okay, any news on price?
Well, we've only got US pricing at the moment, and it basically starts at far lower than most people expected, $499 for the 16GB Wi-Fi only version. There is going to be a version that's Wi-Fi and 3G, so you'll be able to surf the internet using the mobile phone network. But that's the current US pricing. No word on the UK pricing.
And no doubt it's going to be more expensive in Britain than the States, as usual.
Yeah, I think I have this horrible feeling it's going to be a price per pound translation. So we're going to end up paying $490 pounds rather for the entry-level version, in the same way the US just pays that in dollars.
Okay, and very quickly, the release date.
About 90 days' time, they think that it's going to be available in the UK. They're just trying to sort out deals with mobile phone carriers at the moment to obviously make sure it can work on their network. So 90 days. So hopefully by sort of March time, we should be absolutely on there.
Okay, Claudine, thank you very much, and no doubt enjoy the after party. And we'd love to know your thoughts on Apple's new iPad, good or bad. You can email us at thecut@telegraph.co.uk. But that's it for this week. Next week on The Cut, you can hear an interview with The Jacksons. We've also got live music from Tiffany Page. You can keep up to date with us throughout the week at twitter.com/The Cut Podcast. I'm Pete Ferguson, and that was The Cut.